You think you're being kind? You think that keeping the peace, avoiding conflict, suppressing your anger, and staying agreeable is maturity. Maybe you even call it growth. You say yes when you mean no. You smile when you feel disrespected. You nod along with opinions that make your stomach tighten because you believe silence is noble. But there's a darker truth hiding underneath all of that. Much of what you call kindness is self-betrayal. In psychological terms, it's not virtue. It's a strategy, a mask, a persona so refined, so socially acceptable, that it slowly replaces the person underneath it. And Carl Jung had a name for this. He called it cowardice disguised as morality. Let's stop here for a moment. If you've lived your life trying to be the good one, the helpful one, the dependable one, always available, never upsetting anyone, never taking up too much space, then this isn't just a video for you. It's a wake-up call. Because compulsive niceness is not the same thing as goodness. It's not love, and it's not strength. Compulsive niceness is fear wearing a clean costume, fear of rejection, fear of being disliked, fear of being seen as selfish, aggressive, or too much. So you adapt. You become pleasant, you become flexible, you become easy, and at first, it works. People praise you, people rely on you. People say you're calm, mature, understanding. You become safe to be around. But here's what no one warns you about. When you build your life around being palatable, you slowly disappear. Jung described the persona as the social mask we wear to function in the world. It isn't evil. It's necessary. Without it, society would collapse into chaos. But he issued a clear warning. The moment you identify with the persona, the moment you believe the mask is who you are, you begin a slow psychological death. Not because you're broken, because you're divided. One part of you performs goodness. Another part stores the truth. And the truth doesn't vanish. It sinks. You can feel it if you're honest. The exhaustion after social interactions, the heaviness after being nice all day, the emptiness after praise, the resentment you pretend isn't there, the tension in your body that never fully leaves. That's the cost of living as a performance. Because deep down, you know what's happening. They aren't approving you, they're approving the role. And approval will never satisfy you when it isn't aimed at the real self. So ask yourself something uncomfortable. Are you actually kind, or are you just scared? Real kindness has boundaries. Real kindness can disappoint. Real kindness can say no. Real kindness can confront. Real kindness can walk away. Compulsive niceness can't do that, because it's built on one fragile foundation: approval. And when approval becomes your oxygen, disapproval feels like suffocation. That's why criticism hits so hard. That's why you over-explain. That's why you apologize reflexively. That's why guilt follows your needs. That's why you manage other people's emotions instead of honoring your own. You're not living from the inside out. You're living from the outside in. Every day, consciously or not, you're asking, am I safe in your eyes? And the more you ask that question, the less you ask the ones that would actually save you. What do I feel? What do I want? What do I believe? What am I tolerating that is eroding my self-respect? Because here's the mechanism Jung understood deeply. Every time you swallow anger to avoid conflict, every time you fake agreement to keep the peace, every time you perform kindness while resentment simmers underneath, you feed the shadow. The shadow is everything you disown about yourself. Not because it's evil, but because you were taught it was unacceptable. Your anger, your intensity, your desire for power, your need to take up space, your capacity to say no, your willingness to confront. You learned early that these traits were dangerous, so you buried them. But what you bury does not die. It mutates. The nicer you appear on the surface, the darker and more autonomous the shadow becomes underneath. That's why nice people sometimes explode. That's why burnout arrives without warning. That's why depression appears with no obvious cause. That's why resentment leaks out as sarcasm, withdrawal, or quiet hostility. It never comes from nowhere. It comes from below. The unconscious keeps everything. What you repress becomes energy. Energy seeks expression. If you don't express it consciously, it will express itself unconsciously. You think you're preventing conflict? You're only delaying it. And delayed conflict always returns distorted. Now, here's where this gets more uncomfortable. Your niceness isn't only protection, it's also control, a socially approved form of manipulation. Under compulsive kindness, there's often an unspoken contract. If I am good enough, you will love me. If I am helpful enough, you won't reject me. If I sacrifice enough, you won't leave. That isn't love. It's a transaction. And when people fail to deliver what you silently expected, resentment appears. After everything I did for you, that sentence reveals the bargain. You weren't freely giving. You were investing, hoping to buy safety through self-erasure. The bitterness you feel isn't accidental. It's the bill. This is why compulsive niceness destroys intimacy. Intimacy requires truth. Truth creates friction. Real connection is built on honesty, boundaries, and the courage to be seen, even when it risks rejection. But when you live through a persona, no one meets you. They meet the mask, the agreeable version, the inoffensive version, the version that says it's fine when it isn't, the version that never asks, the version that never disrupts. And the result is not a relationship. It's a performance. You play a role, others respond to it, and you slowly starve. You feel lonely among people because no one knows you. And part of you learned long ago that being known is dangerous. So the real question is not how to be liked. It's whether you want to be liked or known. Because the cost of constant likability is self-abandonment. And self-abandonment always ends the same way. Numbness, exhaustion, resentment, a life that looks fine and feels empty. Jung's answer was not cruelty, it was wholeness. He called it individuation, becoming an integrated human being, not a performance. And individuation begins with reclaiming what you were taught to fear, especially anger. Anger is not a flaw. Anger is information. It signals violated boundaries, ignored values, drained dignity. When you suppress anger, you don't become peaceful. You become disconnected from truth. Disconnected people are easy to exploit. People only disrespect you for as long as you allow it. So, where do you begin? Not with transformation, not with confrontation, not with rebellion. You begin with a pause. The next time you feel yourself defaulting into niceness, stop. Ask yourself, what do I feel? What do I want? What am I afraid will happen if I'm honest? Then ask the real question. What would self-respect look like here? Sometimes it's saying no. Sometimes it's leaving. Sometimes it's disappointing someone. Sometimes it's refusing to explain yourself. Yes, people will react. You trained them to expect the mask. Removing it breaks the script. Resistance is not proof you're wrong. It's proof the relationship was built on a role. If your relationships depend on self-erasure, they are not relationships. They are arrangements. And arrangements collapse when you stop paying. What you gain in return is something approval never gave you. A spine, an internal compass, an identity that exists without applause. When you stop being compulsively nice, your energy returns. You're no longer managing everyone else's comfort. You're no longer editing yourself in real time. You're no longer living hostage to approval. You don't become harsh. You become honest. Integration does not mean acting out the shadow. It means owning it consciously so it stops owning you unconsciously. A human without a shadow is not virtuous. A human without a shadow is lying. So if you've hidden parts of yourself to be loved, let this be the beginning of something different. Not rebellion, return. A return to the self you abandoned for safety. Because the goal was never to be nice. The goal was to be free. And freedom begins with one sentence. This matters, and I matter.